So what does an idea, a big pile of lumber, and an 18th century Spanish frigate have in common? Well, they all came together at just the right time to give us our Maritime Heritage Museum. Today I'm here with Ken McKinnon, and we're going to discuss the history of our Maritime Museum here. Ken, how did this museum start?
Well, like all great ideas, I think it started from a number of people sitting around talking about what they could do to enhance maritime heritage in Port Alberni. And their first thought was to build a replica of the Santiago, the first European ship to come in here. And to that end, they bought a bunch of lumber and special woods to build it. They did many trips to Spain and Chile and places in South America to get plans for the ship. And they worked along those lines for a number of years. And then they discovered that they probably never could take passengers out on it, or they couldn't float it because it wasn't a steel-hulled boat. And everything went into limbo for a little while, and then the harbor was being redeveloped at the time, and there was the opportunity to build something here maritime related, and so they started and they got permission to build a lighthouse in mid-90s. And at that time it was a fairly small society, and you know, over time it's grown, and it is what it is today, with the Lighthouse being the first building, and then this building here, the Hutchison Gallery, which is named after Ken Hutchison, who was one of the founders. And we have programs in the summertime for kids and adults, and we have a number of viewing platforms and things on the side there that shows the area years ago and as it is today.
To start a project like that, it must take a lot of involvement from the community, you know, financially, you know, to acquire materials, you know, just support.
Yeah, one of the things that they did first, and it's in the Constitution, is one of the things that they talk about was the one of the plans of the organization was to raise funds to have something that represents the maritime heritage of the community. And they were good fundraisers. They were very good fundraisers. And they bought all the lumber and paid for it through donations. And when the Santiago idea fell through, they sold the lumber and had enough money to build the lighthouse. So fundraising started quite a bit before the lighthouse was built. And then when we went to build this building, we did fundraising again, and it was amazing how the funds just came in. We had a very, very good fundraiser, Ken Hutchison, and he twisted a lot of arms, and you know, they're all here now.
How many people were initially involved, you know, bringing this together with just the few, you know, the ideas to build the Santiago?
Well, it started in 1984. There was an association formed, and there was 6 people. There was Dr. Harry Webster, Ken Hutchison, Brian Dodsworth, Joe Stanhope, Dennis White, and Doug Blake. And they're all people that have since been involved in this organization and, you know, contributed for many, many years.
The Maritime Heritage Society attempted to build a replica of the Spanish frigate Santiago. But why would they want to build such a ship? Well, that particular ship originally was built in 1771, but it wasn't launched until 1773 in San Blas, Mexico. The story of this ship is very interesting. It's one of the first European ships to actually come up to the west coast of Canada and the western part of Vancouver Island. In its day, it wasn't considered to be much of a ship. When it was first launched, it was considered too small. Even though it is classified as a frigate, most navies of the day wouldn't classify it as a frigate. The British would have classified it as a sloop. Aside from being too small, the ship was undergunned, had a maximum of 6 guns. Designed for a crew of only 64, this ship often had a crew of up to 88 and sometimes as many as 24 passengers. This would make for a very crowded trip. But generally, extra crew were required due to things such as scurvy and various other diseases that took a major toll on seamen of the day. Our brave little San Diego did more than just explore the western coast of Vancouver Island. In 1775, it actually made it up to 65 degrees northern latitude. But scurvy broke out amongst the crew and they had to return to Mexico. In 1814, the San Diego sank after hitting coral while sailing from Peru to the Philippines. But divers, don't bother to get your wetsuits out yet. 500,000 in silver pesos was already salvaged. And why is this ship important to us? Well, it's the ship Pedro de Alberni sailed upon. The man who gave us his name for our community, our inlet, our valley. It's a true part of our maritime history. Where are you today? How are things progressing?
I was asked to come in about 2015. The Maritime Heritage taken a bit of a downturn with regards to energy. So I came in and tried to get the organization energized again, bringing in some new board members, making sure that we had some outside exhibits. You can have a museum, but if you don't have any major exhibits, it takes away from people wanting to come down and really take a look at it. So since then, we've been able to bring on some new board members. We've been able to get a couple of iconic displays outside. We've been working with young people through Jen, our facility coordinator, getting some of the fences with fish on it and stuff like that. So making it more of a viable, visible, tangible organization that people can actually see that there's something happening down here.
And recently you've picked up a couple of acquisitions, the Tatouche and the Swan.
And the Swan, yes, to get some new things happening. And I think the board members like the fact that it's hands-on, and I think we're being able to attract more board members because of the fact that it's hands-on.
And you have a number of things usually happening in the gallery.
Lots of things happening in the gallery. Right now we've got an exhibit being set up for the SS Sophia. We have a seagull that we're going to get into a naming contest, and we're going to put them on our dolphin outside. You'll be able to see that seagull from the Beaufort Range, I think. So we've got a number of other projects that are coming online, and we're going to replace all our banners outside. And here again, just try to re-energize some of the things that are happening down here on Lighthouse Pier.
And also, you have things happening down in the lighthouse itself, do you not?
Well, right now we're kind of gearing up. We're trying to get our funding in place for this coming year because the lighthouse acts as a center for all our kids programs. And come June, July, and August, when we're running children's programs, we'll have all those things in place.
Have you noticed over the last little while more people dropping by to visit?
I think over the last year, and I think Jen will attest to this, is that we've had a lot more visitors down here. When you have more visitors, you have more donations that go towards running programs here at the center.
We've moved over here to one of the temporary exhibits, the Sea of History. And I'm here with Jen Preedy. Good morning, Jen.
Morning.
And you have a lot to do with community involvement.
Yeah.
How did you get started in that, and when?
Well, you could say I got started because of what I went through in high school. So I had an amazing teacher, and she really liked getting students involved with the community, especially because when I was at the high school, I was at the old high school, so there was a lot of talk of where to put the new one. And a lot of people were talking about, well, we don't want teenagers near us. So she kind of really pushed in changing that and changing how we thought of ourselves in a community. So I wanted to give students the same sort of opportunity I was given in working with the community and showing what I had to offer. So that's why I say I got this idea for this gallery of A Sea of History. So that's where it started, really.
Aside from this one, you've probably had a number of other different things to bring in community involvement, have you not?
Yeah, so we work a lot with other community groups like the Pacific Care and the library. So we've done a couple Dad's Nights Out where we're bringing kids in during the fall seasons. We have our fish on the fences, so during our summer programs the kids will paint the fish or whatever other marine shapes that we've done, and they'll get to leave it here and we'll put it on our fence so that when they come back in future years they can see what they've left behind. So it's like a footprint in a way. Yeah, so and we're trying to do more. I tried to implement a youth council, so to bring in younger voices in and having control of what they want to put on. So we're trying and we're getting the idea out to the community, so yeah.
And how do people get involved with, coming in to get involved with the community?
Well, we have 2 different social media formats, Instagram and Facebook, that people can get a hold of us through. We also have our website. We created a new personal website for us last summer, so people can email us through that. So, or they can just stop in or give us a phone call. We appreciate any help we get.
And right now we're in one of the latest exhibits by the kids.
Yeah, so this gallery space was designed by the grade 11 and 12 art out of the box class and the grade 11 and 12 drawing and painting class. So there's probably about 40 students involved, and I couldn't be prouder of these kids. I mean, they did amazing work, and I went in with this expectation that, okay, these kids might sort of get an idea of maritime history, but some of them got so passionate, and some of them took little ideas of these stories I was telling them about our artifacts and our ideas, and they totally played off of them and twisted them into their own creative idea and design, and that was the whole point. It was to inspire our youth to, I mean, they don't, not to maybe get them totally passionate about maritime history, but to let them know that it's there and that it's part of our community, which we don't talk about very much. And I was talking with their teacher, and for one of the classes, she said that that was when she saw the most focus, was after I had gone in to talk about this idea. So that was amazing to hear in itself.
When the Maritime Heritage Society found out they were unable to build a replica of the Santiago, they had a lot of lumber. So, what do you want to do with a lot of lumber? Let's build a lighthouse. After deciding to build a lighthouse, the Maritime Heritage Society came up with an agreement with our local port authority. Once that was settled, an actual lighthouse was found. If you look at our lighthouse today, the upper section and a lot of the ironwork inside is actually an original lighthouse that had been on Chrome Island. That lighthouse had been decommissioned and was actually sent down island, where it was found by members of the staff here. It was actually trucked up here for the construction. The rest of the wooden part is built along the line of a West Coast lighthouse. When you go inside, they actually have a very beautiful museum in there with many of the artifacts coming from local lighthouses. The lighthouse doesn't use a lot of power. 120 volt bulb, 500 watts, but it's the mirrors that make it work. Just like this. Actually, what you should do, instead of me telling you the story, why don't you drop down, come and see the staff, and they can really explain it to you and show you the artifacts. Where do you see yourselves in, say, 20 years from now?
Interesting question. Like, we sit on the properties of the Port Authority, and we have a 30-year lease here, and I think our lease is probably about 14 years to go on a 30-year lease. So we have that lease in place. So I think a lot of it's dependent on what happens with the Port Authority, and do they believe, and I think they do, that we're a good viable entity for them to be on this end of their yard. So we're going to do the best we can to kind of keep enhancing what's happening at the museum here. We might try to look at a couple more displays, but here again, when you have displays, you know, if you want to get shelters built and whatever, there's always a fee there to make that happen, you know, and fees may be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. You know, when you look at the space that we have, it would be nice if we could actually expand the museum. Like take out this back wall, move it back in there about 20 more feet, so we have 20 more feet of working space for the museum. So, because I think maritime history is very important, especially in a community that has a history, a long inlet. You know, we've had a number of iconic boats, the Lady Rose, the Francis Barclay, and a few other ships that have been up and down our inlet. Like I know with the Lady Rose, there's some difficulties with it out in Tofino. I'd love to be able to get my hands just on the wheelhouse if they decide to let it go. Just to have the Lady Rose wheelhouse here, we'd find a place, and maybe that means an expansion to maybe get that in here. But here again, all this stuff is up in the air, and so all we can do is just continue what we do in making maritime heritage a viable entity for anybody that wants to come in, whether it's kids, adults, you know, tourists, and to connect more and more with other museums, maritime museums up and down the coast.
Do you actually have plans to expand the gallery
No,
here?
all those plans it's just talk right now, but it's got to start someplace. So we're just kind of looking at, you know, where do we move 10 years from now? Will we even be here 10 years from now, depending on the Port Authority, you know, and our lease and whatever. So we have a good working relationship with the Port Authority. We've got a good working relationship with the museum, and I think all those parties understand the value of what we have to offer.
It's definitely a good value here. It's very important. There is a very big maritime history.
That's right, yeah. And so we're a not-for-profit organization. We have no ties. We have we have connections with the city, but we're our own entity. So we can basically do what we want, you know, based on our communication with the Port Authority and with the museum to make new things happen.
Well, I certainly hope that in 20 years from now, we'll see that extra 20 feet on the gallery
Yeah,
there.
right. Yeah, who knows?
And instead of just a wheelhouse, maybe a place to display the Lady Rose herself.
Yeah, right. It'd be great. You know, and hopefully we can bring on some younger board members, because by that time I'll be over 90.
From an idea, a big pile of lumber, a lighthouse, and more, the story of our Maritime Heritage Museum has been an exciting adventure. So drop by and see what course they're planning for the future. I'm Gerald LeBute, your friendly neighborhood time traveler, and I'll see you next time, whenever in time that may be.